All right, everybody. This is our new family meeting. It's meant to give you a lot. I will have a video recording of this if you need to go back, and I'll have the presentation available. So if you're absentmindedly listening to this as you do the dishes, that's fine. If you are hanging on every word, that's fine too. If you have questions as we go along, don't hesitate to ask. You can jump in whenever you need to. So with the Storm Aquatics roster, we started with just me, and we have worked our way up to 3 full-time coaches. Many of you met Erin. Erin is currently in Japan starting her honeymoon. She will work with the cyclone, the hurricane, and the tsunami group. Most of you will see Greg every once in a while, but he's largely dedicated to the older groups. He'll do the masters group, the senior group, and the performance group. And then the vast majority of you will see me the most. And I coach the thunderstorm, tropical, and typhoon groups. A brief little bit about me. I got my degree in elementary education, fully intending to be a grade school teacher in Maryland, and life changed dramatically for me when I got introduced to coaching. I was a coach and teacher for about 5 years. At some point in 2010, I started to realize that I wanted to be a full-time coach, and I worked my way from West Virginia to Arkansas to here in 2014. Within the Storm swim team while here in Wisconsin, I've been the age group chair for Wisconsin Swimming. This is my 5th year. I'm the club development chair, so I work with a lot of other swim teams when they're going through some tough times. And then you can see that little illustration in the top right. I was the coach director for the Central Zone of USA Swimming for 4 years during the terrible part of COVID. So that was good times. The team itself was created in 2013. We were Sun Prairie Storm when we started. Shortly after getting started, they got all their affairs in order to do the USA Swimming side of things. They're one of 60 teams in Wisconsin Swimming. Right now, we're anywhere between 8th and 12th in the state. Within that central zone you saw the picture of, there are about 700 teams, and we're around the top 100. And then in the grand scheme of USA Swimming, throughout all the 4 zones, there are about 2,600 clubs, and we are in the top 400 or so year in and year out. On any given session, we've got somewhere between summertime about 120 all the way up to 220 in a session, for a grand total of 275 swimmers from at least 9 cities. I mentioned there being about 60 teams in Wisconsin. You can go 20 miles in just about any direction and find a different team. And part of what drew me to this team was what we were trying to do with our athletes. You can find teams that will promise high performance. One can argue whether or not they can deliver such a thing, but they focus entirely on the making swimmers as fast as they can at any expense. You'll find some swim teams that could be extensions of daycare. Kids are dropped off immediately after school, and it's kind of an activity just like you would for babysitting until 5 o'clock. We have probably placed ourselves somewhere in the middle. We don't take swimming super seriously, but if we're going to do something, we're going to do it well. We found that swimming isn't the most important thing for most kids, but it is something that is important. And through swimming, we can teach a lot of life lessons and help kids reach their potential not only in swimming, but in a lot of different aspects of life. We can make some really good lessons in life through the sport of swimming. So while we're trying to make strong swimmers, it's really important for us to make strong individuals. So we're a member of USA Swimming, and it's pretty unclear for new swimmers what USA Swimming does. You don't start noticing the benefits of USA Swimming until you start seeing behind the scenes. Up front, there's the insurance part of things, and then they organize things. Wisconsin Swimming is an LSC. That's part of the Central Zone, and the Central Zone is one of 4 zones. So there's kind of a network of teams that make local competitions all the way up to national competitions. So USA Swimming is the governing body that's kind of overseeing all of that. So within this team, we talked about trying to be somewhere in the middle. The competition, the practice, all of it is really up to you and mainly your swimmer. We've kind of stolen these ideas from a team in Kentucky. They've put the competition phase down into 5 different segments where they're exploring the sport, where they're learning about the sport, when they start figuring out that they might love it and want to dream about how far they can go, then translating those dreams into plans, and then trying to achieve those goals. It's a very long-term plan, and it's a very patient thing. We see lots of kids that are really good at a young age that end up, for whatever reason, not being as successful at an older age. You can point to a number of reasons for it, but we make sure that we don't push that hard short term, knowing that we want them to still be interested and loving the sport when they're 16, 17, 18. So it's really a game of being patient, which is not something you see in a lot of other sports, but it's really critical that with a sport that can take half a year per season, that we treat it with some long-term consistency and patience. The progress that your swimmer will see will be all over the place. Sometimes they'll make big strides. Sometimes they'll get stuck for a while. There'll even be points where you see regression. We really focus on keeping things patient and long-term. It's the only way that kids will love it all the way through. I was a soccer player who happened to swim. I didn't love the sport. I think had I loved the sport, things would have changed for me dramatically, but I loved chasing a ball around and just happened to be okay at the sport. Had they pushed me at a young age to be something great, I would have left the sport entirely. So it's really up to the coach to lay things out, but for the swimmer to make this sport their own. It can't be anything about my dreams for them as a coach or your dream for your child as the parent. This has to be a sport that's led by them. We focus a lot on the process, not so much the result. And we try and teach our swimmers how to keep blinders on so that they are not comparing to the person beside them, to their siblings, to anyone else, but just looking at them versus them a week ago, a month ago, a year ago. So let's talk some admin stuff. The website is kind of a beast at first. It is hard to understand, and there's a lot of submenus. It's trickier when you're looking at it from a mobile device. So I'd recommend, as you're getting used to things, you look at it from a computer. Hopefully most of you have logged on this first time with a computer. When you get done, just browse around and mouse over all the little submenus. There's a lot there. If you are doing it from a mobile device, a lot of those submenus are hard to reach. In the top right corner, there's a site map button that will show you all the clickable buttons. I gave an example at the bottom of the screen to show you what the drop downs look like. One of the questions that's asked early on often is where to find the schedule. We've got an event page that will have details for signups, but we have a kind of semi-finished schedule already set up on the schedule results standards. Instead of clicking one of the drop downs, if you click the link itself, you'll see all the competitions as they stand. There's a Google Calendar that we use for just about everything. If you scroll down a little bit on the homepage, you'll see an embedded version of the Google Calendar, and it'll add more and more pieces to it. Right now, what you're seeing are the upcoming major competition events. We've created a calendar for each group. So if you just have a thunderstorm, you do not have to see all the hurricane practice times, but you will need to subscribe to that thunderstorm calendar. You can do that by going to the training groups and selecting your group and finding the subscribe button. You'll want to subscribe to the group that your swimmer is in, and then the competition events group as well. We've also got a frequently asked questions page, and we've tried to go over everything you might be thinking of to try and head you off at the pass, but don't be afraid to ask. It might just be as simple as us sending you a link. But 10 years into this, we've heard just about everything at least once, and we've tried to make those common questions on paper for you. If you've already done Piranhas or Monona Grove, you have signed up for meets. You'll sign up for them exactly the same way. We put all the information for those meets right on a clickable link. So what you're seeing on the left is, if you were on the events page for the website, what a swim meet list would look like. And then on the right, you'll see what's on the home screen that will eventually start getting filled up with more meets. By clicking on the title of any of those events, you'll get a kind of a pop-up screen that shows you everything from what shirt to wear to what time to be there, if there are heat sheets for sale. All the details you'll need for any particular event will be there just by clicking on the title of the event. You can't do it from the Google Calendar. These are the events specifically through Team Unify. We'll talk a little bit about some of the equipment and things. Does anyone have any questions thus far? Okay. So swimsuits, we've got practice suits, we've got regular competition suits, we've got technical suits. For practice, wear whatever's comfortable. If you've got a boy, you probably want to get them out of trunks and into a jammer. Trunks tend to be creating a lot of drag and make it really hard for kids to keep up, whereas a jammer, just way less resistance, but it still keeps some of that modesty that the boys want. We have a Tier Hexa suit. You see it in the picture there. It's black with red piping. They've got like 3 different backs for the girl suits. They go from a very conservative, thick strap at the top to some decorative kinds. There are all kinds of variations available. On our website, on the swimsuit guide, I believe we have a guide with all 3 straps, so you can kind of figure out what makes the most sense for you. Don't wear those suits for practice. The chlorine can tear through a suit pretty quickly, and these tend to be, for the boys, $50, for the girls, $70 to $80, and they get to be pretty expensive. So wear something cheap and effective. On Tier's website, you can usually find grab bag suits. Same with like a swim outlet. And sometimes you're looking at like $20 for a suit, assuming you know the suit size. I want to warn everyone now about suits. If you are going to get fitted Thursday, for whatever reason, Simply Swimming doesn't size people as well as they could, and they tend to err on the side of big. And at the saying goes, your suit will always be its tightest on the first day you own it, and then every day after it starts stretching out a little bit. So a suit that is just kind of snug but not tight will, by the time December rolls around, be a pretty unfortunate thing draped over someone like a toga. If you're not sure whether the suit feels snug enough, you want to try and put a couple of fingers under the shoulder straps of a girl's suit, or you want to make sure there are no wrinkles in a boy's suit. If you're seeing wrinkles in any of them, you probably need to size down. They've been erring on the side of caution and not telling folks no with really whatever they walk out with. And it's been a real issue in the past with kids getting suits that are way too big. Boys specifically can run into an illegal suit if a jammer goes below the top of their kneecap. So if there's any way you see a little bit of suit coming down below the knee for the boys, that suit becomes illegal based on some old tech suit rules from the early 2000s. I will be wandering around in that 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock window on Thursday. So if you're not sure, don't be afraid to ask. I will be there for those specific situations. We'll give all our new swimmers a really plain cap on the first day. The reason for that, you can see in the picture that TYR logo on the front. We will put their swimmers' name as they prefer to be called right on their forehead so that they can be easily identified by coaches and teammates. That will go probably through the end of September. And then when October happens, we'll let them swap into a cap that they prefer. But while we're trying to learn 30 to 40 different names, it's really beneficial for us to be able to see their name in big, bold letters on their foreheads. They'll get a t-shirt and a swim cap before the first meet. The cap that you see on Owen in the picture is silicone. It's kind of a thicker cap. It's a little softer on hair too. The latex caps are thinner. They're a little more durable, but they're a little less comfortable. Your swimmer can pick and choose whether they want to do latex or silicone, the durability versus the softness. If you want a custom cap like what Owen has, Simply Swimming will have a sign up on their portal that will allow you to pick what you want written on the side of the cap, and then it automatically sets you up to get a pair of those. They're ranging somewhere around $15 a cap, maybe $18 a cap. So you're probably paying something like $36 for the pair of cap because you have to order pairs instead of individuals. There'll be some extra items of clothing, some tank tops, long sleeve shirts, all kinds of things that our board is coming up with. You'll see that information coming out in the first week or two of practice. TYR does do a lot of different clothing options themselves, but TYR has gone into a lot of CrossFit style clothing, and the stuff has gotten really expensive. So look for the Elite orders from the Elite Embroidery locally. They're a little more affordable than getting the stuff directly through TYR. One of the things you'll see coaches doing and some of the swimmers doing at swim meets, we have 3 colors in our color spectrum. The red that you can see as the background for the slideshow here is our primary color. The blue is our secondary color. So we go red on Saturdays, blue on Sundays, and if we have a Friday night meet like distance events, we'll throw on black for that. Doesn't affect anything about caps and things, but when we have the team t-shirts, if you have all 3 of those, fantastic. Wear that corresponding color. If you don't need to go buy additional shirts to make me feel better about the organization, but you'll see that I'm always in that corresponding color by day, and in most cases, the shoes will be matching the shirt. Some other equipment things. I wanted to talk a little bit about fins. Every year we will preach to get fins that Simply Swimming brings to the event. There's two kinds you'll see in those pictures. On the bottom right is the tier flex fin. Undiscounted, that's running like $49.99. It's an expensive fin. And more important than the cost is it sinks. Those ones in the top right, those are Triton, Triton. They will also be at the suit fitting. They're about half the price and they float. And the big difference for that, when we are at Sun Prairie East or West, it always seems like fins fall off in the deep end. And historically, our Thunderstorm are not able to go down 12 feet deep in the water. So if they have the tier flex fin, they will sink and it'll require someone from another group getting those fins for them. So get the tier flex fin. If you've got a kid that's growing in and out of fins fast, write the swimmer's name on them small, but make sure it's distinct. And then we can swap those out for the next size up when it happens. I don't want families to have to go broke paying for fins as their kids' feet grow. So we can swap things out if you're comfortable with it. I've got two different parkas listed here, and this is kind of a time-sensitive thing. Tier, for 3 years now, made that gray, white, and red parka. They're now on a closeout sale because they are moving to the red parka, which I think is a little bit thicker. $50 more expensive at least. The ones on the left are now something like $79, $89, something like that. And the ones on the right are $150. And short of that stripe, you cannot really tell a difference. So check Thursday. And if you want to do something, those tend to be a really hot item among swimmers. You'll see most of our returning kids in them. But I will say, if you're not 100% sure your swimmer is going to love the sport, hold off on this extra purchase. They're really nice when we're doing our evenings at the outdoor pool because you don't have to wait for them to get changed. They're really convenient. But once you start throwing embroidery on those things, you're looking at a $110 purchase for someone who may not love the sport. So really ensure that they want that thing and they're going to get their use out of it. Let's talk a little bit about practice. Sun Prairie West, more than Sun Prairie East, is a problem with getting there early. They have electronic door locks, and they typically only open 10 minutes before practice begins. So on a cold December evening, if you drop your kid off 20 minutes early, there's a chance that they're standing out there in that parka for 10 minutes waiting for the door to open because Sun Prairie West will not let them in. So please make sure that it's 10 minutes before practice when you drop them off. You're more than welcome to sit and watch. You're more than welcome to let them go and do some shopping, whatever you prefer to do, but make sure they get in the door before you drive off. If they have other commitments where you know you're not going to make it on time, they're going to be there 10 minutes late or they have to leave 10 minutes early, that's absolutely fine. You won't see a coach throwing a fit about someone leaving early or getting there late. If they're going to miss practice, that's not a big deal either. If they're going to miss every Tuesday, that's fine too. We don't need to know any of those. But if it's going to be something about a couple weeks, let's say they broke their ankle or you're going to the Bahamas, something like that, let us know about extended absences. The other question we get a lot is about competition. We tend to be a little pickier with new swimmer evaluations than most teams. So when a kid joins our team, we know they're ready to compete. It may not be at all levels, but we have a level for them wherever that may be. Do not go to every single meet we have. There's a lot of them. They get to be monotonous. There comes a point where it's diminishing returns. Go if they're wanting to do it. If they're needing some time off, take the time off. We know how much this will ruin most of your evening and weekends as a sport. So if you need a Saturday to go, hunting for pumpkins, go do it. When you sign up for meets, you'll declare your swimmer for the meet, yes or no, based on the sessions. So, for example, our Winter Classic will have 4 sessions available. You pick the days based on what session and day you want to be there, and then the coaches will pick the event lineup. We'll pick the relays, we'll pick what they think they can do. Some of those events might scare the kid, some of them might scare you, but we won't put your kids in anything that we don't think they're ready for. It might result in an early DQ, but your kid will be able to finish it, and it won't be something where you are biting your nails wondering if they're going to sink to the bottom. We won't put them in a situation where we don't think they can succeed. The swim meets are really important for a couple reasons. Number one, for them to see where they are now versus where they were, so that they can see that the training is worth it. And number two, it's kind of preparing them to get a little uncomfortable with things that they've not done before. If they stay and practice Monday through Friday, but never go to the meet, there's just this comfort in the sport that they will have. And we want them to be always willing to try the new things, to do the new challenges. And most of those come in swim meets. It's also the time where the swimmers do the majority of their bonding. We do a lot of laps and a lot of busy stuff during practice. They get a lot of time to be themselves and be with friends during swim meets. So while the racing is important, I would say the camaraderie is just as important, if not more. There are so many different meets. You can see this spectrum going from left to right, going from the Badger Central meets all the way to national level meets. We had someone in all of these kinds of meets in the last 2 years. So let's talk first, timeout number 2. Any questions we have so far? I know I'm going through a lot. I'm going through it fairly quickly. Does anyone want me to stop on something? Okay, I'll keep on going. So we have finished year 2. This will be year 3 of the Badger Central Swim Conference. Primarily, these meets happen during our school year, mainly during the fall and winter sessions. And we'll see them typically on Friday nights, Saturday mornings. Most of the other teams try and host on Friday nights, but that's our big night for high school meets. So that's the most disruptive night for us to be able to host. So usually when we host on Saturdays, they go on Fridays. These meets are against other kids that are new to the sport. They're all fairly local. Cambridge, Edgerton, Lodi, Portage, Elkhorn, I think, is the furthest one away. They're perfect. I love them dearly. They don't have officials. There are no disqualifications. There's lots of ribbons. There's lots of validation. It's $5 and the meets are easy. They find kids that are about their speed so that they get some good, fun racing without having to be too stressed out about the consequences. It's where they find the love in the swim meets. Typically, we have 5 or so of these meets throughout the year. I would highly recommend you mark these on your calendar. Right now, I think we've got 3 of the dates secured. It's at the bottom of the schedule tab. We'll be filling in more of them in the next month or so. Because these other teams that are in the league all start their season at different times. They're all different levels of organization right now, but some of them aren't starting their swimming until October or even November. So it is very much a fly by the seat of the pants kind of league. It is a very refreshing thing for me to learn to be more flexible and manageable. And I think you'll really enjoy just the loose vibe as compared to the USA meets, which can be pretty intense. One thing of note, rec meets always have a specific day let's say your kid is a December 2nd birthday. They will age up the day after the season begins, but they will remain that younger age all through the year like they would for Summer League. Whereas USA meets, it's whatever you are the first day of competition. You could do one meet where your kid is one age, and then the next meet your kid is the younger age as you bounce back and forth between Badger Central and USA meets. So be prepared for that. We don't let our state kids swim in these meets, and we don't let our kids that are working towards those state things do their better events. We make most of those kids swim their off events so that they are working on being well-rounded swimmers. The USA meets are typically a little bit longer. Some of them are one day, some of them are multiple days. Some of these meets are open to everyone. Some of them are just our older kids, some are just our younger. Last winter, we did a USA meet where it was just our 12 and unders, and we went on a bus to Oswego, Illinois. Another one was our older kids going to Des Moines. Another was just in DeForest. They're kind of all over the place. Some of them are affordable. Some of them are not very affordable. If you see a meet at Walter Schrader, they throw some absurd fees onto their swim meets because they are a big pool and they know they can get away with it. So these meets can be a little bit more expensive. I just want to warn you in preparation for it that these are just longer and much more painful to you, your family, and your wallet. We host 3 semi-major meets throughout the year. They go anywhere between 300 and 500 kids. We've got a fall meet that will host the first weekend in October. Then we've got a 2-day meet, January 12th and 13th, and then an end of the season championship meet for anyone who's not qualified for state that we will co-host with McFarland in McFarland. If you are not swimming in these meets, there's no volunteer requirement. But if your swimmer is participating, we'll need your help volunteering. It's usually a 1-to-1 ratio. So if your kid swims in one session, we need 1 session's worth of help from you. So if you're only doing 1 day of the Winter Classic for 1 session, you do not have to be there both days. Historically, that Winter Classic meet has been the weekend before Christmas. We're moving it to January because it turned on to like the 23rd of December this year. And it was going to be just a riot from all of our families that needed to do Christmas shopping. As we get through a meet, the meet results get to be pretty confusing. You'll see lots of new time standards. You'll see lots of different times that you didn't expect. For our thunderstorm, lots and lots of disqualifications. You'll still see them in tsunami. You'll still see them in typhoon.
You want yogurt?
If they're all over the place with disqualifications and performance, especially for 10 and unders, they're going to be all over the place, and that's okay. When our swimmers get to be 9, 10 boys, or I would say 12-year-old, 13-year-old girls, then you will see some different plateaus. That plateau can be attributed to a bunch of different things, but the only way to get through it is patience. So keep focusing on the process. Keep making sure that they don't know what you're thinking after a bad swim. It is a really good test to see your poker face, because there are going to be swims for a 10 and under that you won't be able to explain. They won't be able to explain. And they need to know when they look at you that you're not disappointed in them as people based on how they just swam their 25 backstroke. They need to feel loved, whether they go fast, slow, or even the wrong way. When we do our swim meet reports, you're going to see a lot of things about B, double B, A, double A time standards. USA Swimming every 4 years, right after the Olympics, will put out new motivational times. And these time standards are used for some swim meets, but they're largely used to track a swimmer's individual progress. So the first time that they get a time standard, it'll be a B cut. And when they get that B cut, that means they're in the top half of their age group. The next one will be double B, so on and so forth. And they get a cute little bag tag like what you see in that top right corner that they can put on their backpack. And tends to be a real mark of pride, much more so than the ribbons. And we push this more than the ribbons because this is them against themselves, whereas the ribbons are kind of an arbitrary based on who else was in that event, who else was in that meet. But we love tracking the individual journey of a swimmer from just completing it legally all the way through becoming an A swimmer through a quad A swimmer. I believe we're getting towards the end here. Let's talk about communication a little bit. If you've not found us on Facebook, I would highly recommend following Storm Aquatics on Facebook. Instagram, less so. I would say our Instagram is marketed a little bit more towards our athletes. Any of our important stuff will go Instagram and Facebook at the same time. But we probably post 2 to 3 times a week on Facebook. But if something happens like a pool closure, weather, anything of significance, we'll send out an email. We'll put something on the website itself in the news category, and we will hammer the social media so that every which way you get it, you'll get notified. If you haven't already done so, in your account settings, you may want to put a phone number in for text alerts. We only use that for the crucial, it's 6 o'clock and the pool just got shut down for a 6:15 practice, those kinds of things to try and stop you in the tracks. You will not see us sending out spammy, salesy kind of things. We'll send out a regular newsletter. It typically goes out on Wednesday evenings, and that'll go over the weekend schedule, meet deadlines, all of the important things you'll need to know. They're also logged on the news tab of the website for 2 years or so. So you can find anything that's been going on by accessing the news tab. Finally, ways to talk to us. I showed you Aaron and Greg and myself on that first page. Talk to us if you have any sort of matters you need discussed. You'll see junior coaches on the deck. Those are typically some high school swimmers that are helping out. And you'll also see some of our hourly coaches. Any issue you have or any questions you have, take it to one of the 3 of us. Don't take it to the junior coaches or the assistant coaches. If it's something that needs a real heartfelt discussion, schedule a time so that we can have a sit down instead of doing it in between practices or while kids are in the water. Um, if you've got questions about something, please send an email. Don't text anything. I try and compartmentalize my work and my life through text and email. So once things cross over into that text field, I'm not super wild about it. Um, a lot of the coaches are working mornings and evenings and weekends. So if there are non-essential things going on, if you have general questions, please be accommodating to weekends when we aren't as quick to respond. If it's an urgent thing, we will absolutely notice it. But if it's not a major thing, we're going to try and leave that for Monday morning. And that's what I've got for the presentation. What do you guys have for me?
I have a question, Michael. You mentioned fins, like if the kids are moving from size to size,
Mhm.
is that you also have fins now that they could like purchase used, or is that kind of just after they purchase their first pair and then mid-season they might be able to upgrade?
So we've got one thing that's going to be tricky for us. We've got a massive bin of them at Sun Prairie East, the one pool we're not getting much time at in the fall session. So they are there and ready. We just have to find our way into them. There are a limited number at West, but I'd say the majority are at East. So I'll try and get a small stockpile of the different sizes from East to the outdoor pool for those first few weeks.
Okay, great. But you'd suggest we kind of buy a pair to get started?
100%. Make sure you have a pair for the first day. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, what is I'm just looking at the different locations where the practices are held.
Huh?
In TPC, is that outdoors?
It sure is.
Okay. And is that like formerly a country club or?
Yes, that was Cherokee Country Club. They've got a 6-lane, 25-meter pool.
Okay. And then it looks like in October it moves then to East High School, and then where is East Madison Hospital?
So East Madison Hospital was formerly known as the American Center. Do you know the brand new place off exit 99?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a 4-lane pool, it's a beautiful pool, but it is legitimately twice the rent of any other pool. So we're using that one very sparingly. So if you see TAC, that's the American Center.
Okay, great. Do you think we'll ever go to West or at East a little bit more or no?
As soon as the girls' high school season is over, we will be pretty much full time at East. What's going on with East during the girls' season? The girls' head coach works on the west side. So instead of them having their practice at 4 to 6, as they've had for the last 9 years, they moved their practice to 5 to 7, giving us just a sliver of practice time before, and then 2 hours of nothing, and then another 2 hours afterward. And we just couldn't find a way to make that work with our schedule, mainly with coaches, but we really with everybody. So that is why we're not at East like we want to be right now.
Okay, thanks. Do you think that you guys will ever be at West High School or no?
The older groups will be at West more often than not. That pool is typically a little bit colder and a little bit deeper, and the air is a lot colder than East. So we try and keep our littles at East because it's 3'6" at the turn end, whereas West is 4 feet, and many of our thunderstorms cannot do 4 feet.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mhm. Any other questions? Nothing in the chat.
Michael, when I was trying to sign up for USA Swimming, it was asking for a member ID for my child.
Oh, USA stuff. Okay. Don't sign up for USA Swimming yet. So I think
Perfect.
they're turning the offerings off tonight. They have like a clickable link,
Yep.
and that link ties to a registration that starts September 1st. So if you were to try and register now, I don't know if you were successful, but if you weren't, awesome. If you were, then we need to refund you because that registration will expire in 4 months.
Okay, so wait till after September 1st?
Yes, after September 1st, we'll send a link out to everybody, and that's how you'll register.
Great, thank you.
Very good question. Thank you. Oh, new family stuff that I didn't put in here. We will have our week 0. Let me check on the calendar. I've put it on our Google Calendar already. For Thunderstorm, they'll get the first 45 minutes. Hang on a second. Thunderstorm new swimmers will swim from 5 to 5:45 at TPC Wisconsin. And then anyone who's a new swimmer that's not a Thunderstorm will go 5:45 to 6:30. We believe that that will work for everyone being back from breaks. If you can't make all 4 days, that's fine. But we'll be going over new content for new swimmers all 4 of those days. So even if your group is typically a Monday, Wednesday, or a Tuesday, Thursday, you'll have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of that week. And then the following week, we'll go into regular practice. Any other questions?
Is week 0 for all new families or just new to swim team?
All new Storm families.
Okay.
We have a fairly different terminology. Every team is probably a little bit different, but for the kids that are in the non-Thunderstorm groups, the ones that have been at it a while already, they know things one way, and we might teach things a little different, so that we will teach some of the expectations and things, as well as some of the pointers in that first week.
Mike, I think you just said this. I'm sorry. So if you're a new swimmer, how many of the days should you try to make? All 4 or a couple?
All 4 if they can make it, but if they can't, that's okay.
Just as many as you can.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Well, if you are out of questions, you're more than welcome to call it a night. If there are any questions you are shy to ask in front of the group, I'll wait. Thank you guys for being here tonight.
Thanks.